Hi, folks. We'll wait until everyone gets into the webinar, and we welcome you to the presentation this afternoon, evening, where depending where you are, the forecast calls for storms. Sounds dubious, but I think Adam's going to bring us some really insightful information. While we get started and everyone joins, I'm going to do a quick review again of our CPE offerings and the rules regarding CPE. Today's presentation is worth 1.5 CPE credits. If you are interested in CPE credits, the first question is asking you if you need credits. The rest of the questions are all pretty much presentation oriented. So we need you to answer 5 of the 6 polling questions and be on the webinar 75 minutes to earn those credits. If you have difficulty with the polling questions, please let me know. I'll be sure you're awarded the credit. And of course, in accordance with the standards of CPE credit, the National Registry of CPE sponsors, CPE credit will be granted based on a 50-minute hour. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Bob Walker. Bob Walker is the Vice President of Financial Advisor at Merrill Lynch and FEI Dallas Chapter Chair of Career Management. Welcome, Bob.
Thank you, Nancy. Welcome everybody to the another virtual FENG FEI meeting. I think we got something pretty cool lined up for you today. And before we get started, I'd like to thank our people who sponsor us, which are going to be, of course, when we can meet in person, it's Bank of Texas, who gives us a great location and a great perspective there. And of course, the FEI. If you're not part of the FEI, you should be. So we'll talk if you're not, and if you want to be. But in the meantime, I'm going to take the proverbial mic over to Kelly Harris to introduce our speaker for the day. Kelly, it's all yours.
Thanks, Bob. Good evening, everyone. Sorry we're not together to see you, but welcome to tonight's event. I think it's going to be enlightening and entertaining. Our speaker tonight is Adam Turno. Adam graduated from Clemson University with an accounting degree, and he spent his first 10 years as a CPA working with Pricewaterhouse, the Neiman Marcus Group, and finally BKD. And then he left our wonderful and ethical accounting world and went into working his second career at Watermark Church. While he was on staff at Watermark, he spent time leading the marriage ministry, the college ministry, and ended his time at Watermark as the director of arts. Over his time in his career, he's spoken over 500 times in churches and businesses. Throughout this time, he has become an expert in communication and engagement. For the last 10 years, he has been working with leaders. He is the founder of Adam Turno and Company, a consulting firm focused on leadership development. He is the host, he is the host of the Better Man podcast and the co-host of How to Lead with Clay Scroggins and Adam Turno. Adam loves baseball and golf, but other than that, he generally prefers to be indoors. He has been married since 2003 with 2 boys and a dog. We have to hear more about this. If not, it will be one of my questions, but he also received a doctorate from Disney University. Please welcome Adam Turno.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kelly. Yes, it's actually a doctorate from Disney University. When I was in college, right after my sophomore year, I went over and took a semester off of school, and I went down to Orlando and worked in Walt Disney World. And I actually had an accounting internship. And so this was back in the day. I had to manually input non-cash transactions into the sales and general ledger system. And that's what I did almost every day. That's what our whole department did there in revenue control. So part of being in the college program, we got to go through and take some classes at Disney University. And I received a doctorate degree at the end of that, which is better than a master's degree, which is also a real thing. So if you call me a master's, I'm going to be offended because I earned the doctorate. And come to find out that the doctorate degree really just meant that I had perfect attendance, that I went to all the classes. So that's really all it is a perfect attendance. But it is fun to talk about. all of that. So we got one poll question that's going to pop up right now as we get through this. Do you wish to earn CPE credit for today's presentation? If you can answer that, that would be helpful for us as we're going through, and we'll make sure that you get everything that you need. So I'm in Dallas, Texas right now, so I'm sure there's some of you all. Why don't you do that in the chat? Just type in, let me know where you are. That'd be fun just to know where everybody is right now. I know that Nancy's up in New Hampshire, and so she's cold. It's dark out right now. Here in DFW, the sun is still out. So there's Mark is in Flower Mound. Pamela, welcome from Chicago. Ben, good to see you here in Austin. Shirley's in Houston. I like that. All right. John's in downtown Dallas. John, I appreciate that specificity. Craig in Copper Canyon. All right. I don't think I know where that is, Craig. You might need to tell me a state there. Berryville, Arkansas. Welcome, Albert. Good to have you there. So this is good. We got people from all over. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to be talking about resilience. Okay, so I've got this dubious title here, this doom and gloom, facing the storms, how to build resilience in an uncertain world. I'll go ahead and give a little bit away here. We've already done this. We've already built a lot of resilience. And so what we're really going to be talking about today is how we can continue to build resilience in this uncertain world, because uncertainty was a part of the leadership landscape long before the pandemic, and it will continue to be part of the leadership landscape long after the pandemic. And so how can we as leaders continue to build resilience? How can we do it without waiting for the next global catastrophe? That's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, to set up our time, though, just I want to show a couple of videos. So these are all appropriate for home. So if you're at home right now and you got little kids running around, you're at the office and there's still some people there, that's fine. These videos are appropriate for home. But I want to show a couple videos. So make sure your volume is up. What I want you to do is I want you to go back and think about the spring of 2017. The spring of 2017, you might have seen this video. It kind of went viral there because of the circumstances. And I want you to think about, how did we judge this person? What did we think about this person when we first saw this video back in 2017? So watch this.
Scandals happen all the time. The question is, how do democracies respond to those scandals?
And what will it mean for the wider region? I think one of your children has just walked in. I mean, shifting sands in the region. Do you think relations with the North may change?
I would be surprised if they do. Pardon me. My apologies.
What's this going to mean for the region?
My apologies. South Korea's policy choices on North Korea have been severely limited.
All right, so that was back in 2017. That happened. And at the time, we probably were like, how on earth could you do that? This is the BBC. This is a global news broadcast. You'd think you'd be able to communicate with your family, hey, this is going to be pretty important, what's going on here behind this closed door here for the next few minutes. So if we can have some scene control. But now, after going through the pandemic and all the Zoom meetings, we look at that now, and we're like, that's no big deal, right? No big deal at all. That doesn't faze us. We just understand that when you're working from home and you're doing things virtually, that is just a part of life. And so it's not that big of a deal. That's because so much has changed, right, over the last few years. That there's so much that's changed, that little things like that, the kids come running in to a Zoom meeting, that doesn't freak us out. Now, what it takes to cause us to go, okay, that's a little bit different. And what it takes is this video. The volume is going to be low on this one for a few minutes, but hang with it, and we'll watch this one.
Mr. Ponton, I believe you have a filter turned on in the video settings. You might want to take
we're trying to, can you hear me, Judge?
I can hear you. I think it's a filter.
It is, and I don't know how to remove it. I've got my assistant here. She's trying to, but I'm prepared to go forward with it. I'm here live. I'm not a cat.
I can see that. I think if you click the up arrow next to the.
All right, so that one, now when we see the guy in an official court meeting at a hearing and he's got the cat filter on, that's crazy, right? So yes, a lot has changed when it comes to the way we operate with all the Zoom videos and everything, but that that one's a little bit over the top. Now I want to do something here because we got a little bit of time. I want to show that video again because I've watched this one multiple times, and there is a part of that video that cracks me up. And what I want you to notice this time is the square, the gentleman who is right above the cat. That's what I want you to notice, because he looks like he could care less about what's going on until the one lawyer, the one attorney says, "I'm not a cat," and then he suddenly wakes up. And I think his reaction is worth $1 million. So let's watch this one more time here.
Mr. Ponton, I believe you have a filter turned on in the video settings. You might want to take a
We're
look.
trying to, can you hear me, Judge?
I can hear you. I think it's a filter.
It
And the-
is, and I don't know how to remove it. I've got my assistant here. She's trying to, but I'm prepared to go forward with it. I'm here live. I'm not a cat.
I can see that. I think if you.
All right, I could do that all day. We could just look at YouTube videos all day with that kind of stuff. But the way his eyebrows peek up and he just starts laughing, I love that. So anyway, okay, now the family comes running in. We don't think that's big of a deal. The cat filter, we still think that's a big deal. But I start with both of those just to remind all of us that, you know, so much has changed since 2017. Obviously, what we've all been through over the last couple of years. There's a lot that has changed. We've all learned some new skills throughout the last couple of years. We've all grown to be more flexible. We've all improved our understanding of the Greek alphabet as all these new variants come out. And so there's a lot that's changed over the last couple of years. But one thing that really has also happened, or one thing that I think is also true, and one of the other changes that has happened to all professionals, really everybody that has made it through these past couple of years, is that we've all grown to be more resilient. And that's a good thing. The definition of resilience that I like is really just here from Merriam-Webster, which is the capability of a strained body to recover its size and shape after a deformation or a deformation, especially by compressive stress. But I really like this one, the second definition here, that it says that to be resilient means this. It means that we have an ability to recover or adjust easily to misfortune or change. The ability to recover or adjust easily from misfortune or change. That's the definition of resilience that I like. And I think that's what is so true of so many of us over the last couple of years, is that we have all shown resilience. I know when the new year turned in 2020, nobody wanted to go through this. Nobody chose this. Nobody really said, hey, I know what would be good over the next couple of years. I want to become more resilient by going through some economic turmoil, going through a pandemic, going through all the social unrest. But we've made it. And we all have shown resilience. We've been able to recover from the shutdowns. We've been able to learn how to manage the uncertainty that has been so prevalent over the last couple of years. And really, honestly, like, we just haven't given up. We're still showing up every day. We're still staying in the game. And so we have shown a tremendous amount of resilience. And what I want to do this evening is just talk about how we can continue to build on that, because this is a really, really important part of our professional life, is resilience. You cannot be a successful professional if you are not resilient. We have to have and be able to develop this skill of being able to recover when misfortune or change comes our way. We have to be resilient. It's part of success. It is the table stakes for being a leader as we operate in this landscape of constant uncertainty. And so tonight we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about how we can continue this momentum of building resilience in our life. We're going to talk about how we can build resilience without waiting for the next external challenge that's come our way. As I've alluded to a few times, we had a lot of external challenges thrown our way over the last couple of years, and it forced us to build resilience. And so today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how we can continue to do that without waiting for some external factors that are going to drive us to do that. What are some habits maybe that we can develop that will continue to cause us to build more and more resilience? Let's do this, Nancy. Let's throw the second poll question up there real quick. Can you do that for me, please? All right. So in your opinion, which one was more embarrassing, the kids walking in or the cat filter? Which one do you think would be more embarrassing if it happened to you? Okay, so we've got quite a few people there. Yeah, I don't think I'm too surprised by this, but we have got most people saying, let's see, we've got 24, we've got a couple of people left, but most people are definitely saying the cat filter would be a lot more embarrassing than having the kids walk in. Again, kids, no big deal. We're used to that, right? We're used to that. All right, we'll share those results. 92% of you said the cat filter would be a lot more embarrassing. Okay, let's keep going here. So I've got 3 things that we'll talk about today, 3 ideas that I want to share with you, ways that we can build resilience without waiting for the next external, crazy thing to happen to us. And so we're going to go back to the 90s. We're going to talk about the comfort zone, right? How we can leave the comfort zone. We're going to talk about how making friends with those who fail while daring greatly helps build resilience in our life. And we're going to talk about here at the end why we need to resist the urge to run when we maybe feel some fear or some shame, when maybe there's something that's going on professionally that's causing us to want to just act like Forrest Gump and get out of there. I'm going to encourage you to say, hey, those are maybe the moments where we need to lean in as we go through this. So those will be the 3 ideas that I'll be sharing with you as we go through. I got some stories and things along the way. If you've got any questions as we're going through here, either raise your hand. Nancy will be monitoring that. Put it in the chat. This is relaxed. She can interrupt me if you've got something, but there'll also be some time for some Q&A at the end as well. So, okay, idea number one, how we can build resilience, continue to build resilience, is to purposely leave the comfort zone. Now, when I was doing some research on this, because this is actually what I'm sharing today is really part of a chapter in a book that I'm going to be releasing this fall. And as I was doing some research on resilience, I saw this idea of the comfort zone being talked about over and over again. And honestly, when I came across that term of leaving the comfort zone, it took me back to the 90s, took me back to high school and early college years of just going, oh, okay, this leaving the comfort zone, that sounds like some old news, some old advice that's been out there for a long time. But I decided to do a little research and just say, where did this idea come from? Who coined the term, the comfort zone? And it was a lady by the name of Dr. Judith Bardwick. She was the one that released some research. I believe she was from University of San Diego, released some research on the comfort zone. And I really like what she had to say about it. And here is how she defined the comfort zone. I think this is a helpful definition for us. The comfort zone is this. It is a behavioral state within which a person operates in an anxiety neutral condition. So using a limited set of behaviors to deliver a steady level of performance, usually without a sense of risk. I really like that phrase there in the middle, the anxiety neutral condition. That is the comfort zone. Now, what I mistakenly believed is that there's only 2 zones out there in the world, according to Dr. Bardwick's research, that there is the comfort zone and just the panic zone. Right? I just thought, well, if I'm not in the comfort zone, then I must be in the panic zone, right? Like the comfort zone is you on a Friday night, glass of wine, Ted Lasso or your favorite TV show and Netflix, whatever, anxiety neutral, limited set of energy, and you're just sitting there enjoying your time. That's the comfort zone. And the opposite of that would be like Katniss Everdeen in the Hunger Games, right? When the Hunger Games started, right? And all these people are trying to kill her. And that's not really the way it is. It's not just 2 zones out there in life. You're not just in the comfort zone or you're in this panic zone, because none of us would ever willingly choose to go into the panic zone. And this is where I think this idea of the comfort zone becomes very, very helpful, because there's actually 4 zones. There's 4 zones that we operate in with this. The first one is this comfort zone. So you've got this comfort zone, that anxiety neutral position. But when you leave the comfort zone, you don't go into the panic zone. When you leave the comfort zone, you actually go into the fear zone. Now, fear and panic are a little bit hand in hand there, but let's continue on with this model, because the fear zone really doesn't have so much to do with your fearing that there's going to be some physical harm to you by leaving the comfort zone, especially professionally. When we talk about this, it's not fearing something that's physically that's going to happen to us. A lot of the fear that we feel when we leave the comfort zone is really a psychological fear, or it's this insecurity that we might feel. Like, will I be able to perform? Am I going to fail? Are people going to make fun of me? There's some of this fear that happens if we leave the comfort zone. But when you leave that comfort zone and then you can make it through that fear zone, Well, now you can move into what they call the learning zone. This is where you start to learn some new skills. This is where you start to develop some new habits. And then when you can make it through the learning zone, then you get into the growth zone. So it's not just two zones out there. It's not just saying, all right, I'm going to either be in this anxiety neutral position in this comfort zone or this panic zone. No, it's when I leave the comfort zone, what I'm doing is I'm saying I'm going to willingly put myself at a little bit of risk of doing something that's slightly uncomfortable for me. Something that maybe is going to help me grow a little bit or develop a new skill, something where there's some vulnerability. I might embarrass myself. I might try something new and it may fail. There may be some fear or some shame that goes along with that. But when we can fight through that and leave that comfort zone and we can get to that learning zone and that growth zone, that's where we continue to build resilience. And so for you and I, if we want to continue to build resilience, that's the question that we'll be asking ourselves is what or how can I continue to leave the comfort zone? Where am I too comfortable right now? And where can I push myself to try some new things? A couple of observations about this. When you're in the comfort zone, there is no growth. There is no growth when you're in the comfort zone. It does not happen. That's what her research bears out. The growth only happens when we leave the comfort zone. We all can identify with that probably professionally, right? Professionally, you graduated college, you started a job, and then, you just, that was all very new and there was a lot of fear and anxiety with that. But as you continued to learn new things, you continued to grow. And professionally, we know every time we push ourselves, maybe it's taking a new job, looking for a new job, saying yes to new responsibilities, starting to lead more people, whatever it is, we know that when we leave that anxiety neutral condition, there's a little bit of fear, but we start to learn some new skills and we grow. If we just stay where we are, there's no growth. So that's one thing, one observation that we need to make about this idea of leaving the comfort zone, that if we stay in the comfort zone, there's just not going to be growth. There's not going to be growth in our life. And if there's no growth, then it's going to be hard for us to continue to build resilience. Another observation I want to make is this, is that when we do leave the comfort zone, when we do take that risk and we go through the fear zone, the learning zone, and we make it into that growth zone, when you get there, that today's growth zone becomes tomorrow's comfort zone. So again, we've probably all experienced this professionally. Once you start to get to a certain level, then you get comfortable there and you got to continue to push yourself, One of the stories that I like of somebody who has purposely continued to leave the comfort zone actually is Jerry Seinfeld, keeping it with the 90s theme here of talking about Dr. Bardwick's research from the 90s. But Jerry Seinfeld, right, had one of the most popular, what many believe to be the most successful or the best comedic television show ever in the history of television. It lasted, I think, 10 seasons, maybe 11 seasons. And what really encourages me about Seinfeld and what he's done with his life is that when he was done with that television show, and I'm sure, he had a stand-up career, and then he was leaving that comfort zone and starting the television show. Then he got comfortable there and was ready to move on to something new. He could have just ridden off into the sunset. He had more money than he knew what to do with. He had reputation that was amazing. He could go down in history and just sail off into the sunset knowing I was a successful stand-up comedian, and then I created and starred in what many believe to be the greatest television show ever in the history of television. I think I'm done. But that's not what he did. That's not what he did at all. As soon as he was done with that show, what did he do? He probably took a little bit of time off, but he went right back to stand-up. He went right back to it. He said, now I've been out of that game for a while. I want to go back to that. I want to continue to see, do I still have it? And he didn't go back and just tell his old jokes. He went back and he was writing new material, continuing to put himself out there to continue to grow. And then it led into the Netflix series or the YouTube series of comedians in cars getting coffee. And he just kept pushing it. He just knew, hey, today's growth zone is going to become tomorrow's comfort zone, and I need to keep pushing. And so if we want to continue to develop resilience, this ability to bounce back after hardship, then we don't want to wait for the next external force or the next national catastrophe to come our way that's going to force us to become resilient, then this is one thing that we can do, is we can ask ourselves this question, which is, what is one thing I can do to purposely leave the comfort zone? What's one thing I can do to purposely leave the comfort zone? Where am I operating right now in an anxiety neutral position? And where do I need to take a risk? And is it going to feel a little fearful? Yeah, of course it is when you take that risk the first time. But if you stay with it, then you'll get to that growth or that learning zone where you're going to learn some new skills. Then you'll get to that growth zone and you'll look back and you'll realize, okay, not only am I becoming a more seasoned professional, but I am growing more and more resilient as I've pushed myself to go through this comfort zone. So Nancy, let's throw up poll question number 2. How about that? Let's throw question number 2 up there. And so which of those zones that I talked about, either the comfort zone, the fear zone, learning zone, or growth zone, which one do you think best describes your professional life right now? Best describes your professional life right now. Which of those? The comfort, fear, learning, or growth? All right, just a few more people to answer this. All right. I will go ahead. Let's go ahead and end that poll and show those results. Okay, so let's see what we got here. Learning zone, that's great. 46%, 11 of you feel like you've left the comfort zone. You're through the fear. You're learning new skills right now. You're understanding some new concepts, and you're well on your way to this growth zone. So that is really awesome. And then appreciate the vulnerability and the honesty there with 8 of you and 33% feeling like you're in the comfort zone right now. So that's great. So this is a question that we need to keep asking ourselves. What is one thing I can do to purposely leave the comfort zone? Because there's not any growth that's going to happen in that comfort zone. We've got to keep pushing ourselves and moving beyond that. Okay, so that's one way that we can, one idea of a way that we can continue to build resilience as professionals. All right, let's keep going on. All right, idea number 2. Idea number 2 is to make friends with those who fail while daring greatly. Go into the chat. Anybody recognize that fail while daring greatly? Anybody want to take a guess? Where did I get that phrase from? Those who fail while daring greatly. If you want to take a guess, there's no, I won't deduct any points for wrong answers, but go over there to the chat. Anybody recognize that phrase? Fail while daring greatly. No, nobody putting that up there. Okay. This is, there we go. Andrew got it. Teddy, that's right. Teddy Roosevelt from The Man in the Arena, The Man in the Arena. So if you have not read The Man in the Arena, this is just bonus. This is free. When you're done tonight, go Google Man in the Arena and read that. It's probably, like, you want to hear something crazy? I think it's one of the most impactful pieces of written word that I've read maybe in the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, I keep going back to that over and over and over again. Here's a quote from it, right? As Teddy Roosevelt was talking about how the credit belongs to the person who is actually in the arena, the person who's showing up, who is trying in life. The credit belongs to that person, not to the critic, is where he goes on. And then here towards the end of the speech, he says, and even if you, while you're in the arena, even if at worst you fail, at least you fail while daring greatly, so that your place will never be with the cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat. I love that. It's so encouraging to hear that. And so just being in the game, right? Staying in the game, keep being focused and attentive and there and present, that when we do that, then we are going to experience what he called the man in the arena, and the critics cannot come after us. Now, if we leave the comfort zone, and there's going to be some fear and we're going to try some new things, I do want to promise you one thing: it's not all going to be rosy. There are going to be some failures, and that's okay. That's okay, and that's what we're going to be talking about here in this idea: is that if we do try some new things and we do try to leave the comfort zone, it's okay if we fail every once in a while. And for some reason, again, keeping with that 90s theme here, maybe this was early 2000s. Anybody remember these? Put in the chat if you remember these chips, the Wow chips by Frito-Lay. Anybody remember these things? So these things were back when the food enemy was fat, right? Now it's all gluten and other stuff, right? But when the food enemy was fat back in the 90s, Frito-Lay was trying to innovate with their food, and they had come up with a way to make potato chips that were fat-free. a way to make potato chips that were fat-free. They invested a tremendous amount of money making these, developing this product, getting the recipe right. And Pamela, you're exactly right. That is exactly what happened. And so what Frito-Lay did not really take into account is that when the general public realized that these are fat-free, they weren't going to just eat a serving. They were going to eat an entire bag at one time. And what the chemical that they used, or the product they used to make this fat-free, was something called olestra, and the molecules in olestra could not be digested by humans. And when you had a lot of it, things did not go well for you. I'll just put this is what the FDA got wind of this and made them put this on their packaging, okay, that this product contains olestra, and this may cause a really bad day. This inhibits your absorption of vitamins and other nutrients. Well, you can imagine what that did to sales, right? You can imagine what that did to sales. You put that warning on the bag and nobody's buying that anymore. Those are not going to be very popular. So it was a failure, right? It was a failure for them. They left the comfort zone and they tried to do something new. They tried to make a product that was going to appeal to the general public. It didn't work. It didn't work. It was a failure. Was it embarrassing? I'm sure it was. Was it expensive? Of course. I mean, that's a lot of money that they had to spend in research and development and marketing and talking about this product. I'm sure it was a PR nightmare after that label came out and all the stories started to come out of the distress that eating that product was doing for them. But was it fatal? Did it take them out? And the answer to that is absolutely not, right? It did not. It was one product. It was a way for them to leave the comfort zone. It didn't work out and it was a failure, but it didn't knock them out of the game. They're still in the game. In fact, if you go through and you were going to Google failed product launches, what you're going to realize pretty quickly is that there are a lot of really well-established, successful organizations that had products that did not go well. I've got a picture there of Apple's famous flop, right? The Apple Newton. You had Nintendo with some flops. McDonald's had flops. Microsoft, Facebook, Google, all of them. There's this long history of organizations taking a risk, trying to leave that comfort zone, and it didn't work out. And if it doesn't work out, that is okay. And if we take what was happening there organizationally and we now bring it into our personal, professional life, then I want to be clear here. And the idea I'm trying to get across here in this second point is this, is that failure is going to happen at certain times in our life. But when it happens, it does not have to knock us out. The failure, trying something and it not going well, that builds resilience in our life. That builds resilience. And so for us to be okay with that, or to grow a tad more comfortable with, there are times where we are going to swing and miss. There's times where we're going to try something and it's not going to go well. That's where I think what can help us in that is to make friends with others who have failed daring greatly, right? To start to normalize talking about when we have swung and missed. When did we try something? When did we try to leave the comfort zone and it didn't go well? We don't need to hide our failures. Our failures don't define us. They help refine us. They help make us a more resilient professional. And so the more we can talk about that and the more we can normalize talking about that, I think the more it's going to help us not only to leave that comfort zone and reduce that fear, but it's also going to help make us more resilient in the end. And so we need to make friends with those who fail while daring greatly, because when we make friends with those who also fail and we talk about it on a regular basis with our friends, two things are going to happen to us. Number one, we're going to be reminded of how often failure happens. Just at your next team meeting or conversation at home or with your friends or at a happy hour, just start to ask people sometimes, hey, what was a failure that happened recently that helped make you who you are, that has helped make you more resilient? The more we can talk about it, I think the more we're going to realize people swing and miss all the time. All right, that this is something that happens often. When people are out there, they're in the arena, they're trying to leave the comfort zone, there's failure, it's going to be inevitable. And so the more we can talk about it, the more we're going to realize it happens, and that's okay. And then the second thing that's going to happen is we're going to be reminded of just how often people bounce back. People will bounce back from their failures, and that's good for us. We need to be reminded of that. when I think about resilience and that it happens and people bounce back, I think about my friends here, the Martins. This is Ryan and Natalie Martin and their kids. Over there to the right of Ryan is his oldest son, Jackson, who I believe is a sophomore or junior in high school right now. Over there by Natalie is Ryan's wife is Macy, and then they've got their twins, Cooper and Kate, right there. And so you'll realize right around Ryan's leg there at this time, this was a picture that was taken back in 2020, and Ryan is on one of those knee scooter things. And the reason that Ryan was on one of those knee scooter things is because in November of 2019, he and his youngest son, Cooper, the one there in the Under Armour, the navy blue Under Armour t-shirt, he and Cooper and a bunch of other dads and their sons went on an elk hunting trip in Colorado. Went on this like 4 or 5 day elk hunting trip. It was great. They were on this ranch kind of out there, this big piece of property up in the mountains, and kind of in the middle of nowhere. And so there was one morning, it was November 15th, 2019. Ryan was the only one who had not shot an elk yet. And so some of the other dads decided that he wanted to get up, or they were going to help him. And so they said, hey, why don't you get up early tomorrow morning? We'll go take you over to the spot where we know the elk kind of come down the mountain in the mornings. We'll take you out there. You can spend all morning out there by yourself. And then we'll come get you. And so they decided to do that. So Ryan got up, I think it was about 5:30 in the morning. He got dropped off at the spot, looked at his friends and said, all right, I'll meet you back here at 10:30. For about 3 hours, nothing happened. Ryan was just in the woods, waiting for the elk to wake up and waiting for the elk to start walking down the mountain. At about 8:30 in the morning, he finally heard some rustling. And so he got into position took the safety off the rifle, looked through the scope, and realized that it was a female elk that was in his crosshairs at the time. So he pulled took the rifle down because he only had a tag to be able to shoot a male elk. And so he wanted to get into another position. And he knew that the male elk were sometimes behind the females as they were coming down. That was their habit that they were starting to see. So he stood up and went to go get himself in a little better position to wait for the male elk to come down. And he was on the side of the mountain and he lost his footing. And when he lost his footing, he instinctively let go of the rifle to try to catch himself. And as soon as he let go of the rifle, another instinct kicked in of don't let this rifle hit the ground and possibly fire off the gun. So he reached for the rifle and his thumb hit the trigger and he shot himself right above the left ankle. At point blank range. To hear Ryan tell the story is it's bone chilling, honestly. He talked about how for 10 minutes it was just pure panic. He just kept saying over and over again, oh my God, I just shot myself. Oh my goodness, I just shot myself. I just shot myself. His ears were ringing. It was the loudest sound that he said he had heard and that he could remember. And so Ryan then, after about 10 minutes, his medical training kicked in. He's a physician's assistant and spent a long time in the ER. He had seen gunshot wounds before. He knew what to do. He just never had to do that to himself. And so he took off some of his jacket and a scarf and made a tourniquet and a little bit of a sling. He tried to walk. He couldn't walk. And so he, for the next 90 minutes, kind of crab crawled on his back up the mountain to get to the point where his friends could come and find him. And so he got up there at about 10:30-ish. His friends were a few minutes late. When they heard the gunshot, they assumed that he had gotten an elk. And so they didn't assume that they were going to come or that he had shot himself. Ryan did make a mistake, and he'll be the first to admit it. He did not have communication with him. He did not have a walkie-talkie. He didn't have a phone with him, and something that he looks back on now and says, I wish I would have done that. I think that would have helped, obviously, and was not a smart move for me to be out there alone like that. Ryan was then taken to an emergency room. He was flown down to Denver. He went through quite a bit of surgery right there in Denver, ultimately made it home. And I've just got some stats written down here. He's been through, at this point, he's been through 8 surgeries. He missed 40 days of work. He's got 4 pieces of hardware in his leg right now. And here's the part that's amazing. He did not walk for 14 months. 14 months. So something that like half a second a half a second of that injury, of that instinctive reaction, led to 14 months of not walking. Ryan is resilient, right? He is one of my friends that I think about who, yeah, he's been through some failure. He's been through some hardship, but he's been through it while daring greatly, and he bounced back. He now is walking again. And, you know, he's got a little bit of a limp, and he knows his leg is never going to be the same, but they didn't have to amputate the leg. And so in many ways, this was a good story. It was a long road. Honestly, his family had grown to be resilient even before that injury, because his wife, just about 18 months to 2 years before the injury, had just gone through breast cancer. I mean, this family is resilient. They are such a great example to me of resilience. And so I like it that they're my friends. They remind me that failure and hardship happens, but they also remind me that people bounce back, And so for us as professionals, we don't have to go around and share hunting injury stories, you know, just to remind ourselves of this, but we need to have these friends who have failed while daring greatly, and we need to be able to talk about it. We need to be able to talk about it because it reminds us that failure happens and that people bounce back. People bounce back. So here would be a question that you could ask yourself. Again, as I've alluded to earlier, as you're getting together with some friends, is to ask, what is a failure you've experienced that has made you more resilient? What's a failure you've experienced that has made you more resilient? It'll remind us that failure happens, and it'll remind us that we bounce back. And as we go through those situations in life, we become more resilient. Okay, Nancy, let's do this. Let's put up the next poll question, if you can do that. This one's silly. Did you ever try those WOW chips? Did you ever try those? All right. Quite a few. There's a few. All right. This is good. This is good. All right, Nancy, I think everybody's answered there. If we want to share those results, 28% of you have tried it. That may be the situation right there where we could start to talk about how you maybe failed while daring greatly, trying to eat an entire bag of Lay's Wow's potato chips. So there we go. Good job. Good job. Thank you for that. Okay, so we've talked about how we need to leave the comfort zone. We're talking about how we can grow more resilient without waiting for all these external factors, right? How can we maintain this momentum? So we've talked about leaving the comfort zone. Growth doesn't happen when we're in the comfort zone. We've got to leave the comfort zone. And when we do that, we can become more resilient as we learn new skills and grow. We've talked about making success or making friends with those who have failed while daring greatly, and why we need to normalize talking about failure sometimes, because it reminds us that it happens. And it also reminds us and encourages us that people bounce back. We bounce back. Just like Lay's potato chips, those we're not knocked out by that one bad product. Most of us as professionals, we're not going to be knocked out by some of these failures. We can come back. All right. And so let's go to this last point that I want to make before we have some Q&A. And here's the point that I want to make. The last one is this: is resist the urge to run. Resist the urge to run. Now, I have a picture of a golf course here because in the fall, this last year, towards the end of 2021, I, like many people, picked up the game of golf during the pandemic. Again, I played a little bit in college. I was, never very good or very serious. I've got a 13-year-old and 11-year-old. My 13-year-old has started playing golf. My wife has shown some interest in playing golf. And so for Father's Day in 2020, they got me some golf lessons. So I started playing again. And it's been great. Been great to get out there with my wife and with my kids and friends, and just to enjoy the outdoors and get a little bit of exercise in as well. Well, I had two in a row that were horrific. Like these were some traumatic experiences for me. And they happened on consecutive. One of them happened on a Saturday, and then the other one, I think, happened on a Tuesday. And what happened was this, is that I hit two people in two consecutive rounds with my golf ball. All right, two people in two consecutive rounds with my golf ball. Now, some of you are golfers and you're wondering, was it a hook or was it a slice? It was a bad shot. Both of them were a little bit, one of them was kind of a slice and the other one was a hook. The first one, I had set my drive over in the other fairway, which is always a terrible start, and was trying to hit it back over into the other fairway, hit it off the toe. It launched up in the air. A young, he was maybe 17 or 18, young boy was walking up towards the green on the wrong hole that I was on, trying to get over to the other hole. And it happened in slow motion as that ball slowly came down and hit him right in between the shoulder blades Guys, he immediately dropped to the ground when he was hit and just started moaning and like rolling around on the ground. And I thought, oh dear, I might have just killed somebody. Right. And I can tell these stories now and laugh because everybody's okay. But it was terrible. It was one of the worst feelings I'd ever had. You drive up there and it's this mix of emotions because you're feeling ashamed that you just hit such a bad shot, right? You're feeling ashamed about that, but I'm also feeling afraid because I don't know if this person's going to be mad. I don't know if they're going to like tee up and hit something back at me. You know, I don't know if they're going to punch me. I don't know what they're going to do, but this fear and shame is going on. And go up there and make sure he's okay and ask forgiveness. And, you know, you're just trying to make amends. And then the next Tuesday it happened. And this one was a little bit out of my control, but still it was a bad shot that I had hit. It hooked over, it hit a cart path and then bounced up and hit a gentleman in the head. Right. And so that was the maddest man I've ever seen at me in my life was that man yelling at me. And again, the round went on. He kept walking. He was fine. We were able to talk again on the 12th hole, and he was able to laugh about it and says I might have just improved his memory. Those are his words, not mine. I might have improved his memory by hitting him on the head with a golf ball, but it was terrible. It was terrible. It was the worst experience that I've ever had. Certainly with sports, but it's one of the worst, most embarrassing experiences I've had in a long time. And I say that because I want to I'm trying to address those emotions of fear and shame, because in both of those situations, that's what I felt. What I really wanted to do after I hit in both rounds, what I wanted to do is I wanted to take my golf clubs, throw them in the water, get in my golf cart, drive to my car and leave and never show my face at that golf club ever again, at that golf course ever again. That's what I wanted to do both times, but I didn't. I mean, oddly enough, I was in working on this chapter of the book. Resistance was on my mind. I knew that I had been teaching on this and talking about leaving the comfort zone and don't run when fear and shame come up. And honestly, I had just a little bit of awareness in both of those moments to go, hey, I need to resist the urge to run right now. I think I need to learn something. I'm going to stay here. First of all, I need to face these men and look them in the eyes and seek some restitution. And then I think I just need to learn how to handle this day, right? How to handle this day when I'm feeling all this fear and shame. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I did it. I played terrible rounds of golf, but I learned a lot those days. It was really hard to stand over that ball and have confidence after you've just hit two people with your golf ball. And so resisting the urge to run when fear and shame pop up. That's the idea that I'm trying to get across here, and the point that I'm trying to make is that when fear and shame arise in our lives, we need to treat those as clues. We need to treat them as clues, which is why I have the dashboard there, right? I like the dashboard on the car type analogy, that when we feel a lot of fear or when we're feeling ashamed of something that happened professionally, those are clues to us that something's going on inside. And when those clues pop up, what I want us to start to think about now, if I'm feeling embarrassed or ashamed about something going on professionally, or I'm afraid of something that's about to happen professionally, I think those are clues that we've got an opportunity to build resilience in this moment. And so rather than just running in those moments, these are times where I think we would do well to pause and go, okay, what can I learn here? How can I hang out here? I think there's some lessons to learn here. I think I'm going to get through this better if I stay right now and don't just run right now when these things pop up. And so when these situations arise in our life, and they're going to arise at different times, right? It's going to be a decision that we make as a leader that we may feel. It may be an interaction that we have with somebody in a meeting. It may be an email that we send out late one night. It may be an email that we think we're sending to one person, but it accidentally goes to somebody else and it says some disparaging things. I mean, the list of potential things that could cause fear or shame is long. Chances are all of us on this call here tonight have experienced that at some moment. I think the question that we want to ask ourselves there is how can I lean into this moment? How can I lean into this moment? Because if I just keep running when fear and shame arise, then I don't know if I'm going to be growing to become more resilient, becoming the resilient professional that I know that I want to be. And so how can I lean into this moment? So those are just three ideas that I want to share here before I've got one closing thought and one last story that I'll share as well before we get to some Q&A. But so how can we wait, or how do we not have to wait for the next external set of factors that are going to cause us to become more resilient like we have over the last 2 years. We were forced to become more resilient. I think there's 3 ways we can keep up this momentum. We can leave that comfort zone. We can normalize failure, talk about it, make sure that we're not running. Then when we do feel some fear or some shame, then I think if we do those things, guys, there's going to be some resilience that will build in us, and this will start to become one of those reputations and one of those characteristics, those defining characteristics of who we are that we're going to look back on and really, really appreciate. Nancy, let's throw up the last, or I think poll number 4 here. If you could do that, please. So again, silly, you ever hit somebody with a golf ball? Am I alone? I'd love to know if you've ever hit somebody. Okay, there's a lot of no's, and you guys are really fast with your no's. Okay, that hurts a little bit, just how quickly you are saying no, that you've never done this. See, I want to feel like this is normal, but there's no other failures here that I can fail with while daring greatly. Elizabeth said golf club. Okay, Elizabeth, that's a whole nother story. And it was a mistake. Okay, well, that maybe makes the story a little less fun. But all right, so here's what we got. One person. Does the brave soul who did it, who said one, do you want to raise your hand? This is a safe place, right? This is a safe place. Do you want to tell me who that was in the chat, if that was you who said yes? All right, that's fine. I won't embarrass you if you don't want to do that, but it's okay. You can make it through, and we'll all be all right. So 96% of you have never hit somebody with a golf ball. That's pretty good, I guess. All right, here's what I got. One last thought. I want to share a quote. Okay, I want to share a quote with you. One of my favorites. All right. So as Kelly mentioned when she was going through my bio, some of my careers, I started in accounting and then moved out here to Dallas to go to graduate school, to go to seminary, and then had a chance to be on staff at my church here in town for 10 years. And then in 2020 started this consulting business doing leadership development consulting and things like this that we're doing here tonight. But during my time there on staff at Watermark, there was one of the guys on staff was a guy named Jim Wimberly. Some of you may know Jim if you've ever been to Watermark, or if you've been around Dallas for a while, you may know Jim Wimberly. Jim was probably, he just retired, which is why I can share his quote more widely. But I think when he retired, he was in his mid 80s. And Jim was fantastic. We loved Jim. He had a long history in human resources, and then kind of towards the end of his career, the final chapters of his career, he spent it on staff, kind of as a staff pastor. And Jim had a lot of quotes. It was always a lot of fun. But his most famous quote was one that he would say often in staff circles. We'd be in a staff meeting talking about something, and he would say this quote over and over again. And we as the staff, we would laugh whenever he said it, but we never really shared this quote widely. And we just feel more comfortable to share it now because I'm not on staff anymore and Jim's not on staff anymore. And so here's the quote. All right. Jim used to say this: if it's not one damn thing, it's another damn thing. Right. And Jim was a lot of fun. He was a fun guy. And so you can see why maybe as a church, we wouldn't go very public with that quote right there. But Jim would say that quote for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's kind of funny, right? PG rated cuss word in there. That's always kind of funny, right? So he said that because it's funny. And so he would say that often because it always got a laugh at a staff meeting or something like that. But the other reason why Jim said that quote often is because it's true, is it not? I mean, regardless of faith persuasion, right? You've got to agree that's true. Life is throwing one damn thing after another our way, is it not? There is always a curveball coming. There's always something going on. As I reflect back over the last couple of years, what I think is really interesting, maybe, in my lifetime, I saw us go through something like this in 2011 with 9/11, but nothing to this magnitude and for this long have I seen in my lifetime. But what's really interesting over the last couple of years is that we've all been kind of going through the same damn thing together. And the reason I want to bring that up is because of this, is as we start to talk about post-pandemic, or we start to talk about going back to normal or getting back to a sense of normalcy or whatever it is, what I want us to remember is that normal is filled with damn things. It was back in 2017, 18, 19. It certainly has been over the last 2 years, and it will continue to be filled with those things. What's going to change about life if we do get to this next season is maybe it's going to go back to where we were all dealing with our own damn things separately, right? But there is always going to be something coming our way. And so what this means is that there's always going to be an opportunity to build resilience, always going to be an opportunity to build resilience, and our teams need us to be resilient. We've got to be able to model the way for them on this. And so we don't have to wait for all these things to come our way to build resilience. There's things that we can do to leave the comfort zone, to make sure that we're talking about when we have left that comfort zone and it didn't go very well, and sharing those failures and not running when fear and shame come our way. But this is what it's going to take. This is what it's going to take for us, because I really do think that the future is going to belong to the resilient. We might have some things coming at us at a faster pace now than maybe the past few years of our career. But the future is going to belong to those who continue to show up every day and continue to rebound from the uncertainty and continue to rebound from the difficult things that happen. And I think if we can do this, then we're going to be able to serve our teams better. We're going to be better leaders, and we're going to be able to handle going through all of these things in a much better and more healthy way. And so let's do this. Nancy, if we can just throw up the last poll question here real quick, the last one that I've got, which is, all right, which of those ideas was most useful to you today? This idea of leaving the comfort zone, this idea of making friends with those who fail while daring greatly, or this idea of not running away when things get hard? Which one hit you the most? Which one was most useful to you? All right, pretty even split. Pretty even. All right, we can share those results. So yeah, we've got 10 of you, 42% talking about the comfort zone. That was most useful to you. Just this idea of, all right, I need to probably continue to get out, fight through that fear zone, get to that learning zone, get to that growth zone, making friends with those who fail while daring greatly. 33%, 8 of you there found that to be really useful. And then the fear and shame, not running with fear and shame when things get hard. 25%, 6 of you there. Pretty even. I like that. That's good. So, okay, here's what I'd love to do now is just any questions, comments. Nancy, I think you'll be able to, I don't know if you have anything in the Q&A that popped up. I can see the chat here. If there's somebody that wants to use the chat, maybe I can answer those, but I'd love to answer any questions or comments that people have.
Hi, Adam. I see no questions in the Q&A, folks. If you'd like to ask a question, you can do it in chat or in the Q&A box.
That's good. Let me go look at some of the things that came through on the. There we go. Thank you, Mark. So outside of changing jobs, best way to get out of your comfort zone. I like that. One of the things, and I'd love to hear, some of you all answer this as well. Let's make this all of us learning here together, because I know everybody's probably got some thoughts here on things that you've done. A couple of things, like professionally, I think there's ways we can leave the comfort zone within our current job. So finding, here's an example that I think of. Back in my early CPA days as an auditor, you know, when I first started my career as an auditor, there were certain sections of the balance sheet or the income statement that I had to audit, right? You were getting cash, you were getting fixed assets, you were doing the search for unrecorded liabilities, those types of things. And I'd always seen the managers and the seniors, you know, they were the ones that were auditing equity, or they were doing the tax provision and those types of things. They were the ones that were really going after the statement of cash flows or doing some of the really complicated footnotes. That was one that early in my career, I was trying to push myself out of a comfort zone to go learn how to audit a new section, because I knew there were some sections in there that I didn't, you know, I was kind of afraid, like, oh, that seems complicated. I don't know if I want to do that. But if I want to continue to grow as a professional here, I need to start to learn how to audit these sections. So what is for us professionally at our current roles, those of us that are, you know, we're on a team right now, what's our equity section for me, you know, and what's that new area of my current role or my team that I haven't done before that maybe some other people are doing, and how can I go learn something new within my team? So I think there's that professionally. I think some of the resilience can come too personally, right? And so this comfort zone and this resilience, it doesn't all just have to be things that happen at work. I think we can push ourselves to do some things personally. So it could be, hey, I want to develop some new habits. I want to start writing more, or I want to start doing something different physically, like to start moving more, or maybe I want to make some progress in a relationship more. I want to spend these last few years with my son or my daughter who's at home. I want to make sure that we get some moments together. I think we can push ourselves there personally as well. That's the great thing about resilience, is that it becomes who we are, regardless if we're at home or at work. And so we can push ourselves out of the comfort zone, both at home and at work, and we will benefit in both of those. So those are just a couple of ways that I've seen that, some ways that we don't have to just go change jobs to leave the comfort zone, but pushing ourselves to learn some new things where we currently are and trying some new things in our personal life could be some helpful things there as well. So thank you, Mark, for that question. Anybody else? Pamela wants to see the cat video again. I'll show it again here at the end. I'll definitely show that one more time. And you can go to YouTube and just get it yourself too. It's out there for everybody to see. That was one. I think the story behind that one was like the judge was the one that put it out on YouTube almost immediately. So the judge threw that attorney under the bus and just said, okay, this is gold. He knew what was going on with that one. So that's good. And by the way, Pamela, that's probably one of the only times I will in my life answer yes to showing a cat video. But anyway, that's one. That's a good one. All right, what are some other questions? Or somebody else chime in with what you would say for Mark. What are some ways you've left the comfort zone and found that to be beneficial and helpful for you? All right, let's get one or two more questions or comments. I think that'd be great as we keep moving towards, I think we will definitely be done on time. I think we'll be done right at quarter till. Is that right, Nancy? Right at a quarter till, that'll be the 75 minutes.
That's correct. Thank you, Adam.
Yep. All right. Thank you, Mark. Favorite part or park? Which one? Park. Thank you. When I was down there, it was, so Mark is asking my favorite park at Disney, down at Disney World in Orlando. I liked what at the time when I was there, it was called MGM Studios. It's now called Disney Studios. And so that was my favorite one. So you want to know, I don't know if we talked about that. I think when I did one of these last year, it might've been in January, but there are some emails going around today because last year at this time, I'll put this up here. This is where I was a year ago. Okay. So after 25 years or close to 20 years, I had not had a chance to take my family down there. And by dumb luck, and I mean this, dumb luck, we took a flight to Orlando on February 13th of 2021. And anybody that's around here in Dallas knows that that was the day before the infamous ice storm hit Texas. And so we got the last flight out on a Saturday night, and it started snowing that night, and all that ice started that night. And so I'm ashamed to admit that my family and I, we completely missed all the snow and the ice. And we were down there with some other families. And it was a year ago today. So there was a lot of text messages going on around there. But yeah, so that was still my favorite. That was the family's favorite when we were down there as well. We really loved Disney Studios. That was a lot of fun. I had not been to Animal Kingdom. Animal Kingdom was just breaking ground when I was down there working. And so that was really fun to see. That had the coolest ride I've ever been on with that Avatar ride. So, so anyway, all right, Pamela, you said here, all right, so this is great, Pamela. I like this a lot. Ways that we can get out of the comfort zone. Looking for a unique way to conquer fear, such as the fear of public speaking. That is so great. Going to storytelling groups, having the courage to get up and tell the story, 147 member audience. You did this? This is something you did, Pamela? This is awesome. Well done. 147 member audience, your largest, doing the budget presentation for 30 people much easier. That's exactly right. That is awesome. Way to go. Perfect example there of leaving the comfort zone and just trying to get over your fear, going, okay, public speaking, it continues to show up as one or two top 5 of common fears that are out there for people. And so way to go, Pamela. Just saying, I'm going to get out of here. I'm sure you felt some fear, but you fought through it. You learned some new skills. You did it. It made you a better professional. And now standing up there and doing the budget presentation, not that big of a deal. Now, Pamela, if you can start bringing storytelling into the budget presentation too, you'll easily become everybody's favorite. So not only will you be a resilient professional, you're going to be a very, very successful and sought after one if you can bring some storytelling into that. So Kelly's asking a question. You changed careers CPA to ministry. How difficult was that? Good lesson for people wanting to make a career change. Yeah, I mean, I've done it a couple of times, right? So I left CPA, went into ministry, and then I left ministry now to come and do consulting and teaching and leadership development. They were both really challenging. The CPA to ministry was not as hard as going from ministry to what I'm doing now, I wouldn't think. But they're all difficult, and they're difficult for different reasons. I mean, you professionally, you start to develop some identities, and I was known to all my friends and kind of had this identity of, I'm an audit manager and this is who I work for and this is what I do. This is who I am. And now you've got this new identity. So you have some people that are questioning that, that, especially doing something that was so deeply personal to me to go into full-time ministry. I had some people that were, they were just scratching their head going, why would you do that? My parents were like, why are you throwing this career away? All that kind of stuff. So, but those career changes certainly move you through some things. And as we were talking about Seinfeld, and this is something that in the book that's coming out this fall that I wrote to young leaders called The Edge, How to Stand Out by Showing You're All In. It's a book for emerging leaders and those who lead emerging leaders. One of the things I talk about, and I use a little bit of my own personal journey as an example in that, is that you just never know how it's all going to end up, right? We talked about Seinfeld a little bit. I feel like my career has really been like a Seinfeld episode where it just, all these random plot lines finally came together and it's like, oh, okay, now that all makes sense, right? That all makes sense. And so just following some of those things around, you can end up in a spot where you just go, wow, that really, all those things added up and helped me where I am today. And that's certainly what I feel like for my personal journey as well. So Pamela, or let's see here, Mark, our finance leadership's focus for our team has been more storyteller. What happened to just reporting the numbers versus the budget? That's good. Yeah. Storytelling is so engaging. I think that's what I talked about last time I was here, is how to not be a boring job candidate. I think that was what it was about. And we talked about the 5 aspects of boredom and what causes boredom, and just droning on with facts is a huge cause of boredom. We all know that, right? That if you're just listening to fact after fact after fact, but the brain loves stories. It comes alive with stories. And so, yes, the more you can add stories into your presentation, and it's just going to help them come alive. There you go, Pamela, doing it again, writing some books that are going to help you and getting out of the comfort zone. That's fantastic with all that. Okay, any other questions? Anything else come through, Nancy, on the Q&A?
Yes, Adam, we do have one in the Q&A.
Okay.
In your experience, are people who dare greatly outside their comfort zone, or is there a certain type of person that just does that?
Yeah, that's a really insightful question, Craig. And I'd love to know what your experience is on this too. Maybe if you want to move over to the chat, or you can do something here with it. But I don't know if I'm personally as impressed by the adrenaline junkie who dares greatly while, using a wingsuit or trying to snowboard 100 miles an hour, the adrenaline junkie. I think what really fires me up is the person, the story like Pamela told. I was afraid of public speaking, and so I dared greatly, and I tried to do something different. So I think the answer to your question, just my own personal answer, is those who are leaving the comfort zone and it's a little bit outside of their normal personality, right? They're not just looking for the next adventure. They're not just adrenaline junkies. I think those are pretty great when people do that. So what about you, Craig? Which one is more heartwarming or encouraging to you? Is it the adrenaline junkie that keeps putting themselves out there, or is it the person who is a little bit more thoughtful about leaving the comfort zone that's more impressive to you? Yeah, you can put that in the chat. There you go. Definitely the thoughtful. Yeah. So that's it. Elizabeth, thank you. Live a quote on LinkedIn. Good leaders solve problems line with their skill set. That's right. Yeah, that was from my buddy Clay's book. Don't have to do things out of your comfort zone to be an effective leader. Absolutely. You're absolutely right. Yeah, you don't have to keep leaving your comfort zone just to be a good leader. That doesn't have to happen every single time. But it does help us build resilience when we do it, and making sure that we're not just always in that anxiety neutral position. So that's great. Okay, you've waited long enough. Let's wrap it up with this last video. I'll show you the cat video one more time, and then I'll give you guys a few ways that you can stay in touch with me, and then I'll hand it back over to Nancy to wrap it up, and we'll be done here in 4 minutes. Here's
Mr. Ponton, I believe you have a filter turned on in the video settings. You might want to take a look.
Can you hear me, Judge?
I can hear you. I think it's a filter.
It is, and I don't know how to remove it. I've got my assistant here. She's trying to, but I'm prepared to go forward with it. I'm here live. I'm not a cat.
I can see that. I think if you click the up arrow next to the.
all right. There it is. There it is. One last time. Okay, so here's some ways you can stay in touch with me. You can go to my website, adamtarnow.com. Connect with me on LinkedIn. I love connecting with people there. You shoot me an email over at adam@adamtarnow.com. If you like some of the stuff I talked about today, my buddy Clay Scroggins and I, we've got a podcast called How to Lead with Clay Scroggins, Adam Tarnow, that you can subscribe to there on Apple or Spotify or wherever it is you like to listen to your podcast. But just some easy ways to stay in touch there. But this was fun tonight. Appreciate y'all fighting through this, the virtual settings and all that kind of stuff where we can't see each other. But it was fun hanging out with everybody in the chat. Thanks for the questions and the comments along the way. Always appreciate FEI inviting me here tonight. And so Nancy, with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Adam. For closing comments, I'm going to turn it back over to Bob Walker. And while he gets his mic off, we'll let you know that 7 to 10 business days is usually how long it takes for CPE credits. Might give you just a few more days than that, but you'll get an email when they're ready. Back to you, Bob.
Thank you all for attending, and we will see you all the third Tuesday of next month. Thanks for coming. Goodbye.
Thank you, Bob. This does end the webcast. We wish you the best of the evening. Have a great day.
Bye, everyone.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Good night.